The world's financial system wasn't built overnight. It grew out of trust, control, and old agreements, cemented after World War II, reinforced through decades of U.S. dominance, and guarded by systems that most people have never even heard of. But cracks are beginning to show. Quietly, almost invisibly, a new network is forming behind the scenes. One that doesn't rely on Washington's approval or New York's banks. Money is starting to move through unfamiliar channels, faster, cheaper, and beyond the reach of traditional power. While governments debate trade and tariffs in front of the cameras, something deeper is taking shape underneath. A transformation not just in how money moves, but in who gets to decide. And at the center of it all is a country that spent years preparing for this shift, one transaction at a time. Because this isn't just about currency, it's about building a new kind of financial world from the ground up. In early 2025, China flipped the switch on something few outside the financial world fully grasped: an enormous digital payment infrastructure built around its central bank digital currency, the e-CNY. Officially valued at $1.2 trillion, this system isn't just a new payment tool. It's a financial backbone capable of settling cross-border trades in seconds, without touching the SWIFT network or using a single US dollar. According to the People's Bank of China, the digital yuan has already processed over 1.8 trillion yuan, or roughly $250 billion in transactions, just during its pilot phase. What's more surprising is where those transactions are happening. Across over 200 countries and regions, spanning both China's immediate neighbors and far-off partners in Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. Since then, it has only gained momentum. As of mid-2024, e-CNY has processed 7.3 trillion yuan, or roughly $1 trillion in transactions, and 180 million e-CNY wallets have been created. This isn't a shadow system or a small-scale experiment. It's fully operational and growing fast. The infrastructure connects directly with China's cross-border interbank payment system, or CIPS, which now facilitates an average of over $83 billion per day, rivaling traditional clearing networks in scale. And while SWIFT still dominates overall message traffic, handling over 40 million financial messages daily, it doesn't actually move money. China's new system does, instantly. But what makes this shift so powerful isn't just the numbers or speed, it's the independence. Every transaction settled in digital yuan is one less routed through Western-controlled pipes, and every partner that joins the network becomes a little less dependent on dollar liquidity, correspondent banks, and U.S. oversight. Step by step, trade by trade, China is laying new financial tracks under the global economy. These tracks don't lead through Washington or London. They run through Beijing, quietly redrawing the flow of money in a world that's only beginning to realize what that means. China's digital yuan system wasn't built for convenience. It was built for control. Every element is part of a long-term strategy to reduce dollar reliance and shape a financial order with China at the center. This isn't a reaction to sanctions or global pressure. It's been steadily advancing for years. Since 2015, Beijing has signed over 40 bilateral currency swap agreements worth more than $580 billion, allowing nations to trade directly in yuan and skip dollar clearing entirely. These swaps are more than workarounds. They're scaffolding for a new financial web that spans Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. By early 2025, over 38% of China's total trade was being settled outside the SWIFT network. Countries that once routed every major payment through Western banks now clear deals directly with China's central bank or through CIPS. This network isn't built through grand announcements. It grows deal by deal, from oil shipments in the Gulf to infrastructure contracts in Pakistan. In Southeast Asia, QR code-based e-CNY wallets are already used by thousands of small businesses, showing that this system isn't just global, it's local. For nations dealing with high fees, sanctions risk, or dollar shortages, yuan-based settlement offers speed, flexibility, and fewer political strings. With China offering loans and trade credits in euros, often at better rates than dollar-based financing, the appeal is practical, not just ideological. What's emerging isn't simply a payment alternative. It's a shift in financial architecture, one where access, rules, and participation are increasingly determined by Beijing. And that shift is now showing up in regions where dollar dominance once seemed untouchable. While much of the world still relies on SWIFT to send money across borders, China has quietly built a parallel system that's already changing how global finance operates. The Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, CIPS, may not be widely known, but it now processes massive volumes, often faster and cheaper than the traditional network. As of 2025, CIPS connects over 1,400 financial institutions in more than 110 countries, moving about $83 billion daily. And it's not theoretical. It's running live. Since Russia's SWIFT suspension in 2022, CIPS volume has jumped over 90%, as countries look for settlement routes that avoid U.S. oversight. Unlike SWIFT, which transmits only payment instructions, CIPS integrates directly with the digital Yuan, enabling instant value transfer. That removes delays, reduces fees, and eliminates the need for dollar-based correspondent banks. A pilot between Hong Kong and the UAE using the digital Yuan showed cost reductions of up to 98%, according to the Bank for International Settlements. These efficiencies matter, especially for developing economies facing budget constraints or U.S. sanctions. For them, China's rails offer more than savings. They offer independence. SWIFT still handles over 40 million messages per day, but its dominance is eroding where it once seemed unshakable. Nations that had no alternatives now do, and those alternatives increasingly come from Beijing. This isn't a loud takeover. It's a quiet restructuring, happening deep inside the financial system, where speed, access, and autonomy are already redrawing the global balance of financial power. The shift toward China's financial system is no longer just a theory. It's playing out in real-world transactions. In March 2024, Kenya made headlines by purchasing oil from the United Arab Emirates using Chinese yuan, completely bypassing the dollar. This wasn't a one-off deal or symbolic gesture. It was a direct sign that even key commodities like energy are now flowing through new financial routes. Kenyan President William Ruto confirmed the payment publicly, marking a major moment in the move away from U.S.-controlled settlement systems. Soon after, Argentina, facing a severe dollar shortage, took a bold step of its own. It repaid part of its IMF loan using yuan instead of greenbacks. According to Bloomberg, the deal was made possible through China's existing currency swap agreement with Argentina, providing the country with immediate liquidity, something Washington couldn't offer at the time. But these aren't isolated stories. Across Southeast Asia, trade is shifting rapidly. By late 2024, more than 33% of ASEAN-China trade was being settled in non-dollar currencies. In countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, the digital yuan is being used at the local level, not just by banks, but by small and medium-sized businesses. From mobile QR code payments in Jakarta's markets to e-CNY-backed invoices in Kuala Lumpur's supply chains, the shift is happening on the ground. Meanwhile, central banks across the global south are increasingly turning to yuan-denominated liquidity to manage trade imbalances and buffer against dollar volatility. Countries like Pakistan, Nigeria, and Brazil have all expanded local use of the yuan, either through bilateral swap deals or direct trade agreements. These examples show that China's system isn't just technically possible, it's already functioning. And when the digital yuan can offer faster settlement, fewer delays, and more flexible credit than dollar channels, nations under financial pressure don't need to be convinced. The benefits speak for themselves, and for many, switching rails is becoming less a choice and more a necessity. China's rise as a global lender has long been linked to the Belt and Road Initiative, a vast network of ports, railways, power plants, and highways stretching across more than 140 countries. But beneath the physical infrastructure lies something deeper: the steady export of China's financial system. And the digital yuan is becoming its most important layer. In recent years, Chinese-funded projects in Pakistan, Kenya, and Laos have begun settling payments in e-CNY, routed through digital wallets backed by the People's Bank of China. These aren't just fast digital transfers. They're programmable. With smart contracts, the lender controls how and when the money is spent. This gives Beijing more than transparency. It gives influence. Loans can be monitored in real time, ensuring funds are used according to Chinese terms. According to Bloomberg, at least 13 Belt and Road countries are now piloting Yuan-based digital settlement tools, with some using them for both infrastructure deals and sovereign debt payments. The result is a financial framework where China doesn't just fund development, it embeds itself in it. In countries with unstable currencies or fragile banking systems, this model can seem like a solution. But it also creates long-term reliance on China's currency, platforms, and financial standards. This influence goes beyond trade agreements. It affects how nations borrow, invest, and repay, all through rails Beijing controls. As more countries adopt this model, China gains something more enduring than profit: leverage over the global flow of money and the rules shaping its direction. Away from the spotlight, a new kind of financial experimentation is unfolding within the BRICS bloc. With Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, and others recently joining the alliance, BRICS has evolved into more than just a political coalition. It's becoming a currency laboratory, a space where countries explore how to settle trade without the dollar, without SWIFT, and without waiting for Western approval. At the BRICS summit in Kazan in 2024, member states agreed to develop a joint cross-border payment system using central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. China emerged as the frontrunner in this effort, actively promoting its digital yuan. According to the Atlantic Council, by 2025, 4 BRICS central banks were already conducting pilot projects, testing settlements in alternative currencies for bilateral trade. The results are beginning to show. In South-South trade corridors, those connecting emerging economies, SWIFT's footprint is shrinking. New data from SWIFT indicates that yuan-based transactions have overtaken the euro in parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The trend isn't driven by ideology, but by functionality. Countries with limited dollar access or exposure to U.S. sanctions want faster, cheaper, and safer ways to trade, and China's rails are increasingly offering just that. Brazil and Russia, meanwhile, are working on a joint settlement framework aimed at reducing their dependence on both the dollar and euro, with plans to expand this model across more BRICS nations by 2026. Instead of tearing down the global system, this shift is carving out parallel tracks, and each successful transaction makes the old path feel less necessary. As these experiments turn into stable systems, what was once a backup plan is starting to look like a new standard, reshaping not just how countries trade, but how they define trust, control, and economic cooperation across borders. Washington's efforts to contain China economically are producing unexpected results. In January 2025, the U.S. announced a sweeping 60% tariff on all Chinese imports, twice the rate imposed during Trump's first term. The goal was to squeeze China's export engine. But instead of shrinking back, Beijing responded by speeding up something far more strategic: the expansion of the digital yuan in global trade. According to the China Securities Journal, e-CNY usage in trade settlements rose by 19.3% year-over-year in the first quarter of 2025. Chinese state banks began offering exporters yuan-based trade credits at lower interest rates than dollar loans. For many firms, this meant cheaper financing and fewer delays, an attractive alternative in a time of rising global volatility. Major financial centers like Hong Kong moved quickly. Institutions such as Bank of China International now offer yuan-denominated letters of credit for regional shipments, often priced up to 40 basis points cheaper than their dollar equivalents, according to the South China Morning Post. These advantages are gaining traction well beyond China's borders. Countries like the UAE and Indonesia, long considered U.S. partners, have quietly begun testing yuan-based settlement systems for oil and agricultural trade. It's a clear signal. When Washington applies pressure, some countries don't just adapt, they diversify. Rather than isolating China, the new tariffs may be accelerating the very system designed to sidestep U.S. financial leverage. And every trade settled in Yuan instead of dollars brings that alternative one step closer to becoming permanent. China isn't just preparing for a changing world, it's laying the foundation to lead it. While the West debates tariffs and sanctions, Beijing is hardwiring control into trade routes, infrastructure, and payment systems. Each digital rail it builds moves more than money. It moves influence, oversight, and leverage. And when the next global crisis hits and liquidity runs dry, the real question may not be where the dollars are, but whether the world is ready to accept China's terms. Because by then, the system may already be running, and the choice may no longer be yours to make. To stay updated on how this global shift unfolds, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one.